Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Random Wrestling Talk episode number 12. If you guys did not catch last night's review that I did for Impact Wrestling Rebellion, my thoughts and opinions are in that video. Go ahead and check it out on the channel. It was a hell of a fucking show. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it. So that's just my overall opinion on that. But let's go into Random Wrestling Talk episode number 12. There are 3 topics I'm going to be talking about on this episode. First off, we're going to talk about Goldberg. From there, we're going to go into discussions about Brock Lesnar and his retirement from the UFC and what he may actually do in the WWE for the remainder of his future in professional wrestling. And on top of that, we're going to talk about Dean Ambrose renaming himself back to his independent wrestling name of Jon Moxley. So stay tuned for some really good, entertaining shit and just my overall opinions and thoughts on the information and news that has been strolling around in the wrestling industry. First off, let's go into Goldberg. Goldberg has signed a WWE contract to actually perform at a Middle East, Baghdad, or Iraqi event that's going to happen in June. Now, my thoughts on that, how do I feel about that? I think that is a crock of shit that he would sign with WWE. He said that he wanted to come back to perform and wrestle for his son. He has accomplished that 2 years ago. Why he's performing in WWE's Middle East event, I have no idea. I really hope it isn't to come back and actually wrestle, because at this point in time, he doesn't need to wrestle. He is over and done with. His nostalgia act is not good anymore. He's not believable because of his age. If he was in his 30s, I could understand that. But this man is in his 50s. This guy needs to stay retired. There is no need for a guy like him performing in the WWE. Just like The Undertaker has no reason to perform in the WWE anymore. He needs to be retired as well. If he was to perform, who would I think of that would be a great opponent for him? I honestly feel that maybe Undertaker and him would be a great matchup on account of the fact of the names. Nonetheless, to expect anything to come out of it to be great. But Goldberg and Undertaker, the names being placed together on paper, is a fucking unbelievable thought to actually conduct and make happen. But the actual match, don't expect much out of it because you're not going to get what you're expecting. If this was like 20 years ago, yeah, I would say this is going to be a fucking awesome main event because those two guys could put on a fucking clinic in the middle of the ring. Goldberg not being the most technician wrestler in the world, but he could really make you feel the pain when he hits his opponents with a spear and a jackhammer and hit his opponents straight on. But at the same time, he wasn't a great performer. Undertaker would be leading the role in this matchup and doing the dance the whole entire time. So that's how I would feel about that being set up. Goldberg going up against a new young talent and putting them over, I would be okay with that. Now, a young talent for him to go up against, I have no idea. I wouldn't want to see Roman Reigns versus Goldberg. Roman Reigns has had many opportunities to beat big-time legendary names. I think a guy like Drew McIntyre would be great for Goldberg to put over. Maybe Braun Strowman would be another one. Just to help elevate his character again and get him back into the realm of like a world championship status. Kevin Owens would be great too, to revenge his loss that he received at Fastlane. That would be a great way to help Kevin Owens out. and get a revenge the loss that he had, but that's pretty much all I really can say about that. And Goldberg facing Kevin Owens and Kevin Owens beating Goldberg cleanly, I don't think would work at all. They'd have to make him cheat anyway. So that really in itself would not give him a clear-cut victory, making him look strong. So all you'd be doing is just giving him that revenge win at the end of the day. So I wouldn't feel that is really going to get a lot out of Kevin Owens to make him look great. Now, if you made him beat Goldberg like you did with John Cena, then I can understand that. But him beating Goldberg cleanly like that, like he did with John Cena, I don't believe it would be believable enough for us to buy into that shit. So that match I don't think would be great unless you want to just give a revenge win. So that's pretty much all I feel on that subject. Goldberg being in a WWE ring again, performing, I would be against. Him being a guest ring announcer, now that'd be a little bit different. Him actually doing ring announcing and seeing what he can do behind the mic, because I have heard of him actually broadcasting MMA fights, which is very interesting. I didn't know that about him until later on. So him actually doing announcing work would, I think that would be fucking awesome. He might put some legitimate realism to the broadcast team. Possibly. I think it would be great to test him out and see how he does. If, Vince McMahon puts him in that spot and he does a great job and Vince McMahon likes him, why not throw him in as a full-time announcer if you're going to put him give him a contract with the WWE anyway? So that's a really great idea I think they should do. Tell me your thoughts on that as well, and I'll get back to you on that, because I think that's a really great topic for everybody to want to talk about. Maybe Goldberg actually being an announcer, because that's a different aspect that Goldberg has never touched before, so maybe he would actually be pretty decent at it. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with them test running him and seeing how he does at this special event that they're doing in the Middle East. If he gets over and he's doing well and he comes across to all of us like a genuine announcer, why not put him in that spot? I think he would fit perfectly with a role like that. He's still, young enough. He's not too old to do announcing roles and stuff like that. So for him to do something like that, I don't think that would be bad. I mean, if you look at Taz was a definite tough guy type of dude who could kick people's asses. He just wasn't put in the same realm as Goldberg in WWE. Like Taz was placed in ECW, but he was a tough guy. So is Goldberg, and Taz was really a decent announcer in itself. Him and Michael Cole blended very well together. I like their work that they did. I think that's probably what made Michael Cole last as long as he did, because of the fact of Taz working alongside with him. So Goldberg, I think, would be a great asset to the WWE as possibly a ring announcer. I mean, that would be a play call commentator, I should say. But that's just my overall opinion on that. So get back to me on that. Let me know what you guys think on that subject. Now we move into Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is retiring from MMA. That was announced this week. My thoughts on that subject, I really feel that he should have retired a long time ago. This whole hype up of him returning back to UFC, it was such a fucking long drawn out load of crap, hyped up bullshit that went nowhere. And Brock Lesnar did not perform very good against Mark Hunt. Yes, he may have gotten the win, and that's because of his wrestling skills, but Mark Hunt had a punch that almost put him on his ass. And for a guy like Mark Hunt to do something like that to Brock Lesnar, I think is a crying shame, and tells you one thing: Brock Lesnar does not need to perform in UFC anymore. He doesn't need to have a fight in UFC. He is done with mixed martial arts. Now, within WWE, there's a rumor going on that he wants to do one more run and he wants to retire at WrestleMania 36. How I feel on that, I think that is something he should do. Most importantly, he's stale. He's got nothing going for him anymore. He's done everything possible to build his brand name. He's not a guy that's going to be performing every fucking pay-per-view, so what's the point in having him as a champion? Having him face other new contenders and opponents would be a good thing to do for like 4 matches or so leading up to WrestleMania, and there you go, problem solved, and he closes out his career against a big name that could beat him WrestleMania 36. The opponent I think they should set him up with would be Drew McIntyre. I think Drew McIntyre would be a perfect opponent for Drew McIntyre to actually go after. First off, because he would be the guy that ends Brock Lesnar's career, which leads him into 2020 with a world championship opportunity. I mean, if Drew McIntyre could beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, what would be against giving him the number 1 contendership the next month after that, or at SummerSlam, whenever you decide to do that, to have him capture the world championship on whatever brand he may be on at that time? I mean, that would be a fucking great idea. So Drew McIntyre would be my pick to be the guy that ends Brock Lesnar's career. Is there somebody else? Possibly, I'm not sure, but not Roman Reigns, not Seth Rollins, none of the guys not Daniel Bryan even. I don't want to see Daniel Bryan going up against Brock Lesnar. We've seen that. It was a great matchup. He showed that he could have had a match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31 at the time, when everybody was really hyped on the idea that Brock Lesnar faces Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. But we've already gotten that moment, so with him going up against somebody like that would be kind of stupid. But Brock Lesnar facing Drew McIntyre, I think, is the solid pick. Drew McIntyre has rolled through different talent. He's beaten them up, kicked their ass. But lately, since WrestleMania with that loss to Roman Reigns, and like I said, Drew McIntyre should have gotten that win. That would have been a great win for him. Not to mention, they could have sold the fact that Roman Reigns was weak, tired. He's been going through treatments with the leukemia. They could use that as a setback for him for why he lost, eventually leading up to them to face each other again later on this year, and then, maybe have Drew McIntyre beat him again, and then eventually lead up to another point where they have a third match several months later where Roman Reigns finally gets that win. But Drew McIntyre should have had that advantage over Roman Reigns, at least at WrestleMania even, and yet he didn't even have that. He lost decisively. The match was one-sided. It was the typical Roman Reigns matchup. That is the problem with what they're doing with Roman Reigns, and that's where I have my issues with standing by Roman Reigns. But I don't hate him anymore. I don't dislike him so much. I just dislike what the WWE has been doing with him. They're not portraying him in the light that they want him to be portrayed in, but yet they continue to think that what they're doing is the right thing by Roman Reigns. And you've heard this nonsense 100 times on these videos, and if you haven't, you can catch all these videos where I talk about Roman Reigns and my thoughts and feelings on the whole topic. But getting off of that, Brock Lesnar's opponent needs to be at WrestleMania 36, if this is his retirement match, needs to be against a young, tough-ass guy who is a believable opponent that could beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And Drew McIntyre would be that kind of guy because he's a tall, buffed-up kind of dude. He's never faced Brock Lesnar. That's another key thing here to this whole situation. So if anybody deserves to end Brock Lesnar's career, it should be Drew McIntyre, to give him that extraordinary boost that he needs to get him in the main event scene. By him beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 36 next year, if that's what they go with, which I believe they should, this will give him the crowning achievement of being called a main eventer. And that's what needs to happen for Drew McIntyre. They went in the right direction with him earlier this year, and like I said, with the Roman Reigns matchup, it just went downhill from there. So I'm totally against the whole idea of what they did with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, but that's not here or there. That's the past. This is the present. So bottom line is, for the future, I believe Brock Lesnar should lose to Drew McIntyre as his future opponent at WrestleMania 36. If that's what happens, if he retires at WrestleMania 36. So, the last thing I'd like to discuss with all of you is the Dean Ambrose turning back to his independent wrestling name, named Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley's video uploaded earlier this week and claiming he is no longer Dean Ambrose. Okay? He made a video where he's inside of a prison trying to break the walls down and escape from jail. Now, and there was a dog chasing after him. He also had barbed wire wrapped around his arm so he could get away from jail, and he escaped and went about his business. Shows him in the wrestling ring and doing all kinds of shit, training and acting as if he's training for a big fight. There was a little shot of a Viper and then a dice with a 2 and a dice with a 5. Now, don't jump to conclusions, but I'll jump to conclusions anyway for all of us. I believe he's going to AEW. The reason I believe that is because, one, the Khan family have a lot of money. They have the same level of money that Vince McMahon's company does. And they could have that kind of level of productivity, I guess you could say is the word I'm trying to spit out, or like the level of how to advertise this. It really came across an upper level type of production that they did with this whole 1 minute and 30 second video that they helped promote Dean Ambrose's character now as Jon Moxley. So, what are my thoughts on this? How do I feel about it? Well, I feel like it's showing that Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, I'm going to call him Dean Ambrose because we're used to calling him Dean Ambrose more than Jon Moxley, unless you really followed him before he came to WWE. Dean Ambrose really comes across very genuine. He comes across very tough. He has a lot of his old gimmick as well from 2014 when he split up with The Shield and went on his own and had that rivalry with Bray Wyatt, only not over the top ridiculous. But he had that tough guy mentality in the beginning stages of his Dean Ambrose character when he was on his own. And I saw a lot of that in this Jon Moxley character that they were help promoting. I don't know if it was him promoting it himself or it was the AEW wrestling company that helped promote this for him. But at the end of the day, this guy really was giving off a lot of his old character from Dean Ambrose, only with a very more hardcore SK type of message, I guess you could say. And he comes across very tough. I mean, if ECW was around now, he'd be the fucking face of ECW. This guy breathes ECW type matches. He is hardcore to the max. He is a tough guy, and he comes across with a stone cold type Steve Austin attitude. I mean, one guy that I'd love to see Jon Moxley face / Dean Ambrose would be fucking Sami Callihan. Sami Callihan and him remind me of similar characteristics in their wrestling ability. He definitely comes across in the sense that they're both hardcore guys, and if they were to wrestle in a hardcore match, they'd bring the fucking house down. I mean, the whole crowd would go, holy shit. Now, Dean Ambrose being in the age that he's at, which I think he's in his early 30s, maybe mid-30s at this point, I don't know if he could take the kind of bumps that he would be taking like he would in ECW at this point. He's been really banged up over the years. He's had a really bad shoulder problem. And, I mean, the guy has been through a lot of wear and tear on his body over the last several years being in WWE. So at this point in time, do I think that's a good idea for Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose, whatever way you want to call him? Not really. But if you want to throw a hardcore match here or there with Jon Moxley, I would be entertained by that. I think he would do an outstanding job in a hardcore match, and I hope to see him at AEW Double or Nothing. I really do. I hope he makes a guest appearance. I hope maybe he stands up to Chris Jericho or Kenny Omega. I think Dean Ambrose facing Kenny Omega would be a very intriguing matchup. Really, I do. I think that would be fucking entertaining as hell. That's just my overall opinion. So at this point, there's really nothing more I need to say. I've touched all the bases, all the topics that I would like to talk about in this video. So hit the like button if you liked the video. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to this channel. And leave a comment down below to any of the topics that I just discussed here today. And I'll get right back to you on that. And I thank you very much for watching and have a great day, guys. Bye.